My name is Edward, and I am the one trying to uncover the mystery of the deep web. Before you think I'm crazy, you need to understand that I don't like what happens on that site. I'm not in favor of kidnapping, gun trades, or the infamous Red Door. These days, I'm a white hat hacker, helping protect computers from threats lurking in the deep web. But before I became an expert, I was once just a small user who, despite knowing a bit about computers, was naive about the dangers of spending time there. I would soon realize the hefty price of my ignorance. In 2017, everyone was obsessed with mystery boxes from the deep web. I logged onto a site, filled in my details, paid for a box, and anxiously waited for it to arrive. I was terrified, wondering if it was all a scam, or worse, if someone would come to my home, abduct me, and take my family away. To my surprise, no one kidnapped me, and the box eventually arrived. It was large but not as decorated as the ones I'd seen in videos. Many people embellished their boxes with fake spider webs or question marks, but mine was just a plain, low-quality box. People often ask me why I didn't make a video of the unboxing. The answer is simple: I had no desire to become famous. I was only interested in seeing what was inside the box and whether I had been scammed. When I opened it, I was slightly disappointed. Inside were a fake skull, a bat, a knife, and a rope, all items a kidnapper might use, but also things you could easily buy from a store. Among these objects, something else was hidden: a small French bell wrapped in cloth. The bell worked perfectly fine, but I felt uneasy holding it. I was about to wrap it back up when I noticed an inscription on it: "To whoever has rightfully acquired this bell, be joyful, for you have received their favor and blessing. They will come to you and grant you immense joy, the ultimate satisfaction, and emotions beyond measure." I was disturbed. I put the bell back and returned the items to the box, which I then stashed in a corner of my room. Being on vacation, I didn't have to go to work, so I headed to the kitchen with a smile, planning to make something for myself. As I entered the kitchen, I heard a strange noise behind me. When I turned around, I saw nothing had fallen, but something else caught my attention. The camera I had left in the dark had suddenly switched off. The lights had gone out by themselves, but that wasn't all. As I strained my eyes to see, I noticed something else: two white eyes about 2 feet away from me, staring in my direction. They weren't human eyes. As my eyes adjusted, I saw a shadowy figure. It was humanoid, dressed in black with a hat obscuring its face. Its body was long and thin, but its limbs were unnaturally bent. It looked human, but it wasn't. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. My entire body was frozen with fear. Gradually, I started feeling deeply sad. I wanted to cry, to throw myself out of a window. I couldn't understand what was happening to me. This wasn't my feeling. It was as if seeing that shadow had caused me to feel this way. Gathering all my strength, I tried to run as far away as I could. Since that day, I've often had nightmares where I see the same figure, not just in my home but everywhere I go. Whenever I feel a sudden wave of sadness, I know it's close by, hiding in the darkness, watching me. The scariest part is that only I can see it. I started to believe I was going crazy. This torment lasted for months, and it only got worse as the figure came closer. The worst day started when I actually managed to sleep, a rare occurrence back then. When I woke up, it was still dark. I had gone to bed with all the lights on, but when I opened my eyes, I was shocked to see they were all off. I knew something big was about to happen. I tried to get up, but my body wouldn't move. I could only stare ahead at my wardrobe. Suddenly, it opened by itself, and a strange figure began to emerge. "Who are you? Why are you doing this to me? What do you want?" I asked, terrified. The figure stepped forward, revealing itself for the first time without its jacket. Its body was gray and covered in leaves. Its mouth was tiny, barely visible, and its body was covered in wounds. Before I could look closer, it lunged toward me at a speed no human could match. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to breathe, and my heart was racing. After that day, the nightmares only intensified. I knew I couldn't escape it. I had to accept that this thing would follow me forever. One day I found the bell again, lying on the floor where the figure had been. It dawned on me that I could never rid myself of it. I couldn't throw it away or destroy it. Someone else would have to willingly take it from me. Just as I had ordered it from the dark web, I decided to sell it there again, hoping someone else would take it off my hands. As expected, the bell ended up in the possession of another curious soul. I have no idea what that figure will do to them, but I know it will be horrific. Even after all this, my interest in the dark web didn't fade. Instead, it grew stronger. Though I never researched the bell, fearing it might come back to me, I dedicated myself to protecting people from falling into such traps. Over the past 5 years, I've become an expert in computer security. I now spend all my time hacking the accounts of those who try to do something big on the deep web and scaring off kids who don't realize what they're getting into. They may fear me, but I know I'm only trying to save them. Whenever I remember that night, fear grips me again. December was ending, and heavy snowfall blanketed everything. I was alone at home, playing video games in my room. My parents were out, so I decided to do something scary. I had recently heard about the dark web from my friends. My friend Nova told me it was a terrifying place, mentioning a Sinister platform where cannibals discussed their fantasies. Out of curiosity, I logged onto the Tor browser, which made browsing the deep web easy. I explored Hitman for Hire pages, disturbing torture videos, and other horrifying sites. I was about to start watching a scary movie when suddenly a link appeared with the message, "Not for the faint of heart. If you dare, click here." Without thinking, I clicked on it, and I still regret that decision today. My screen went black, and the word "live" appeared on the right. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, a white spotlight flicked on, revealing a woman standing in the middle of a filthy kitchen. Her face was hidden behind long black hair, and she wore dirty, white patient clothes stained with mud. The kitchen was disgusting, with dirty dishes piled high and cobwebs everywhere. Cockroaches scurried across the walls. But what caught my attention was an old stroller in the corner, the kind you'd see in a horror movie, dirty and covered in dust. Suddenly, I heard a baby crying. The sound was coming from the stroller, though I couldn't see the baby. I muttered to myself, feeling uneasy. Then, a chilling lullaby began to play. The woman started rocking the stroller in time with the music. Her long black hair made it hard to see her face, but I could feel her eyes on me. She spoke to the baby in a soothing tone. "Hush now, sweet child. Don't cry." The more she spoke, the louder the baby cried. "No, no, don't cry. If you do, I'll have to punish you," she said, her voice calm but menacing. She rocked the stroller harder, but the baby's cries only grew louder. "That's it. You've made your choice," she declared. She stopped rocking the stroller and walked to the side, picking up something from the floor. When she returned to the spotlight, I saw what she was holding: a glass jar with a metal lid. Inside, something was moving. When I realized what it was, my blood ran cold. The jar was filled with large red ants. What is she doing? Is she insane? I thought, horrified. The woman pushed her hair aside, revealing her face. The camera zoomed in and I nearly screamed. Her eyes were bulging and green, with a severe infection. Her cheeks were swollen and oozing, her entire face covered in sores. This wasn't makeup, it was real. She smiled, put a finger to her lips, and whispered, "It's time to put the little angel to sleep." The baby's cries had weakened by then, but the woman wasn't done. She opened the jar and, without flinching, scooped up a handful of ants. They must have been biting her, but she didn't react at all. Then, she did something even more horrifying. She started sprinkling the ants into the stroller. As soon as the ants hit the baby, the cries grew louder. I heard the baby's wails and the sound of ants swarming over its body. The crying continued, louder and more agonizing. I was frozen in terror. All I could do was watch as the woman kept dumping ants onto the baby. Suddenly, the screen went black again and the word "live" disappeared. The chat room exploded with messages. People were congratulating the woman, saying, "Good job, that was awesome, and can't wait for the next show." I closed the page, sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. I turned off my computer, ran to the bathroom, and threw up. That night I couldn't sleep. The baby's screams haunted my dreams. I knew I had stumbled upon something horrifying and that I would never be the same again. This happened several years ago when I was a teenager. I was on summer vacation, and my parents decided to visit our village, a beautiful and peaceful place nestled in the mountains. The village was full of greenery, surrounded by dense forests that were filled with various wild animals. Every night, the air would be filled with the sounds of crickets, owls, and other nocturnal creatures. I was used to hearing these sounds, but what happened one night still gives me chills. One night I stayed up late chatting online with my friends. My parents had gone to bed and the whole house was quiet. The only light in my room came from my laptop screen. I was deeply engrossed in my conversation when I suddenly heard a noise coming from the balcony. At first I thought it was just an animal, maybe a cat or a raccoon. But as the noise continued, I started to feel uneasy. It was a soft scratching sound, like something was dragging its claws across the wooden floor of the balcony. The sound grew louder and I realized that whatever was making it was getting closer to my window. My heart started pounding in my chest. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't resist. Slowly I turned my head toward the window. What I saw made my blood run cold. There, crouched on the balcony, was a dark figure. It was too large to be an animal, but it wasn't human either. Its body was covered in thick, matted fur, and its eyes glowed a bright yellow in the darkness. It had long, twisted limbs that ended in sharp claws, and its mouth was filled with jagged teeth. It was staring directly at me. I froze, unable to move or scream. The creature slowly stood up, its head nearly touching the top of the balcony door. It leaned closer to the window, its eyes locked on mine. For what felt like an eternity, we just stared at each other. Then it suddenly let out a low, guttural growl. That sound snapped me out of my paralysis. I jumped up and ran to my parents' room, slamming the door behind me. I woke them up, frantic and shaking, trying to explain what I had seen. My father grabbed a flashlight and went out to check the balcony, but when he got there, the creature was gone. There were deep scratch marks on the wooden floor, but no other signs of the creature. My parents tried to calm me down, saying it was probably just a bad dream or a trick of the light, but I knew what I saw was real. For the rest of our stay, I couldn't sleep without keeping a light on, and I avoided going near the balcony at night. Even now, years later, I can still vividly remember that creature's glowing eyes and the terror I felt. I've never been able to explain what I saw that night, but I know one thing for sure: I never want to encounter it again.